here we are again. Welcome to the locker room for show 145 on a Sunday afternoon. I don't know why I went into a bit of an accent there, Graham. I don't know why. But anyway, this is the locker room on Indie Live Radio and Independence Live. Whether you're watching us or listening to us, very good afternoon to you. Hopefully you're well this Sunday afternoon. Joined by myself, Michael, and my wonderful co-host, Mr. Duffy himself. No, it's Graham, not Duffy. We'll keep his nickname for Monday to Friday, and we'll use his full name on a Saturday and Sunday because that's how polite I am. And hopefully very soon we'll be joined by Ross, the Ross County fan, where we look back in the weekend's action. We'll kick off with Celtic and Ross County as well. Don't forget, get your comments in on Facebook Live and also like us on Twitter at the Locker Room Indie on Twitter as well. We're here until 5 o'clock as well. We've got to coming up as well, we've got to look back in the Women's Six Nations action from yesterday, and there's a game on today. I think it's England against Ireland, so we'll keep an eye on that one as well. Graham, before we start going into deep detail about the football action today up at Dingwall and yesterday, a bit of sad news kind of broke last night about 8:15 about the boxing legend Ken Buchanan passing away at the age of 77.
Yeah, very sad news. Obviously, a kind of Scottish legend, Scottish icon. He's obviously got that statue as well. And, you just look at his stats, 69 total fights. He won 61, 27 knockouts and only 8 losses. And he was undisputed world lightweight champion in 1971. He's had a phenomenal career. I know that outside of boxing, he had a problem with alcoholism. I've actually met him a couple of times, like in recent years, and clearly a very knowledgeable, clearly a very likable guy. And it's never nice when somebody dies, but it's a kind of a legend like him, and it's such a sad passing for his family as well. And there's no doubt he was a legend of Scottish sport, and it's just a real shame. I don't think anybody expected that when that news came out last night.
I was watching an interview today with Alex, Josh Taylor, another high B as well, because I think, Ken Buchanan was a big Hibs fan, but I think Josh was a Hibs fan as well. And it was quite interesting what he was saying that even though that Ken Buchanan was a worldwide champion, title winning, back in 1973, but he didn't get the recognition that he should. And I'm thinking, well, that's a pity and that's a shame. But, then it leads me back to the fact that is it because he was Scottish or whatever? And I hate to bring this up at this time when it's, sadly passing away, but I mean, the guy should be like in the Hall of Fame, a legend, but he wasn't recognised. I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, that was terrible.
I would like to think that it's not because he's Scottish. He should get the recognition he deserves. I think, like I say about David Martindale on that quite a lot, I think probably Ken Buchanan was maybe underrated as a boxer, but there's no doubt in his ability. And there's no doubt in his legend status. You don't get that statue if you're not a legend, let's be honest. So he was a massive, massive legend of Scottish sport. And I would like to think that it isn't because he's Scottish that he's not got the recognition he deserves. But, I mean, you never know. You just never know. But he was, for the Scottish folk, he is, and he always will be a legend. And it was just a really sad bit of news that came out last night. I was watching Twitter and that and seeing all the stuff coming in about him and all the personal kind of, and I did actually see Josh Taylor's comments as well, which was nice as well, because clearly Josh Taylor looked up to a guy like Ken Buchanan. How can you not? So he's clearly looked up to him, and it's a really sad pass of him as well, but just for all his friends and family. And it's really just it's a horrible, horrible time for his family and stuff. And 77 doesn't feel like an age at all, to be honest. And as I say, he had that battle with alcoholism. Whether that's something to do with him passing away, I don't know. But, it's just very, very sad news. And he was, for me, probably very underrated.
I mean, it was nice of obviously the statue to be for Ken Buchanan to still be about, basically, when a statue get unveiled. What was that, for about 3 or 4 years ago? Maybe more, maybe less. But usually you find that when people passes away, they actually bring the statue's been built and whatever. But this time it was nice. It was nice for him to be here, and then for the statue to be unveiled as well.
Yeah, exactly. And he's, his legacy will live on. I'm sure there'll be folk that, are brought up now in boxing that maybe don't know a lot about Ken Buchanan, but they'll be watching everything that's been said about him. They'll be looking at that statue thinking, oh, this guy must have been brilliant. They'll be going and looking, seeing what kind of record he had. So, yeah, I think it is good that he managed to see his statue getting built, because like you said, a lot of folk, when they die, the statue gets kind of built after they've died. But on this occasion, that's not been the case. And it's great, the fact that he's had that statue built in his name for the recognition that he deserves. And, it's just a very, very sad weekend for everyone involved in Scottish sport, and for Buchanan's family and friends as well. So, but as I say, his legacy will live on.
Yeah, because I mean, when we speak about Scottish legends, we always speak about Andy Murray and all the rest of it. But Ken Buchanan should be up there in terms of like a Scottish legend. But as I was saying earlier on, like it might not get the recognition outside Scotland, and that's not right. And
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually realise that I've just having a look at his Wikipedia. His nickname was Fighting Carpenter. Never actually knew that. But I mean, he did have a really good career. Looking at some of the people he fought, he had a very, very good career. And, I don't know if many folk will have a better career than he did. And 69 fights probably doesn't seem a lot. But the fact he only had 8 defeats in that, I think that's an incredible record. And he can be proud of that record as well. And, I just think that if you're a guy like Josh Taylor, who's obviously met Ken Buchanan, I think, as well, he'd look up to that. He'd look up to him. And I'm sure that Ken Buchanan probably has given Josh Taylor a lot of advice about not just boxing, but about how to live your life. And I'm sure Taylor's taken that on. So, there's been I think Buchanan's had a really, really good career, a really good life. And he probably, as you say, he probably is a bit underrated. I don't think he should be. And I would hope that it's not because he's Scottish that he doesn't get the recognition. But there'll be plenty, I think you're right as well. A lot of people talk about Andy Murray. I don't think I've heard Ken Buchanan's name mentioned for quite a long time, to be honest. Maybe because he's been at the game for so long. But there's certainly no doubt that he deserves every bit of recognition that he deserves.
His nickname would be the Carpenter, as you said, but James Elliott, hopefully you're well, James. He said that his nickname came from the fact that he was a carpenter to trade, so that's why it was nicknamed the Carpenter. So if you've got any more memories you can share us with them, we're on Facebook. You can comment on Facebook and YouTube. As I say, we're on till 5 o'clock, and yeah, just a real sad loss to the sport and to Scotland overall, Graham.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, 77, no age at all, really. And it's just a very, I think everybody was kind of surprised when that news came out last night. Nobody was expecting that. I didn't know if he'd been ill or whatever. But it's just, yeah, very, very sad news. It's always sad when anyone passes, no matter what it is, no matter if it's what sport or what in life it is. It's just very, very sad news. And the fact that it is such a legend like Ken Buchanan, it kind of does, it does have an effect on people. So, yeah, very, very sad news. And I'm sure that his funeral will be very well attended as well.
Yeah, no, exactly. So that was Ken Buchanan sadly passing away at the age of 77. Right, hopefully we'll be joined in a few minutes by Ross. As fun enough, Ross is a Ross County fan. Imagine that if you're named Ross and you're a Ross County fan. It wouldn't work any better for you. He'll be coming very, very soon. I think he's making his way back from the Dingwall now. And we're going to speak about the last game in the Scottish Premiership this afternoon. Ross County 0, Celtic 2. First of all, Graham, there wasn't a lot of there wasn't a lot of writing home to write home about in the first half. Obviously, Celtic had a lot of possession, done not a lot with it. Ross County couldn't really get out the own half. And all I've got written down here was Carter Vickers header, Kyogo shot, and they missed in the second half. Taylor, Greg Taylor, brilliant shot off the post, and obviously we'll get to the VAR incident in a minute. What me and you might disagree on, but we always like a bit of disagreement on a Sunday. What do you make of the early stages of the game? Do you think Celtic was in? Do you think Celtic started well, or do you think it was a case of Ross County couldn't get out?
I think Celtic were not at their best. I think their flair players, their main creative players like Jota, like Kyogo, like Maeda, weren't really involved in the game a lot. There wasn't a lot of chances, but you've got to give credit to County. I thought County defended very well. I know that they put a lot of men back behind the ball, but as I said in the group chat, it's trying to find that balance between defending and attacking, because you know that when you play against Celtic, if you try and get forward, if you try and break forward, they're going to break on you. So you're trying to get that balance right. And I thought Malky Mackay got his tactics spot on. They defended very well, but County didn't have a lot of threat going forward. Eamon Brophy, Jordan White couldn't really get involved in the game. There was no real chances for Ross County in the first half. But then they stifled Celtic. Celtic played quite slow. I said this on Friday, that it's very hard to know what you're going to do when you come back from an international break. You've had 2 weeks away. It can be hard to get at your stride. And I thought Celtic did that first half. They couldn't really get at the stride. A lot of passing, but not really going anywhere. I think they tried to get the ball wide quite a few times, but Ross County doubled up in numbers. Jota was having a very poor game in that first half, to be honest, until he got the penalty. And then second half, obviously, once Celtic get the penalty and they score the goal, County have got to open up a little bit more. They've got to try and do something to get back in the game. And the second half was a better game. I think it was a bit more open. Celtic started to get chances. County started to get forward and have a few chances themselves. As James Elliott put in the group chat, I don't know how Kyogo misses that chance. It's a simple chance for a guy like him who scored 20 goals this season. He'll be kicking himself if he's not scored, because he should have scored. And then fair play to Bernabe. It's a great strike. Hits it across the goalkeeper. Very good strike. And the game was done. I thought County gave a good account of themselves, but they just couldn't really create that big moment. They had one in the second half, a header over the bar. But apart from that, they couldn't really threaten that much. But they stopped Celtic playing. But the thing is, Celtic, that's what champions do. Even if you're not at your best, you still win the game. And Celtic have done that. They've managed to get 3 points. They've kept a clean sheet. They go into that Derby game next week now very, very confident. They would be anyway. But I think first half Celtic weren't quite at it. Second half, they were a bit better. But you've got to give County credit for the way they played.
Yeah, I must agree with you, Graham, because obviously County defended well in the first half. Celtic couldn't break them down, but it was a really better second half, and Ross County had a few chances, like the one big save, the only save that I would say Joe Hart had to make was that Sims header in the second half. But when you saw the replay, he should have left it because and I can't remember the guy who was behind him, but he was in a better position to score.
Yeah, he was, and I'm sure that'll be a frustration for Malky Mackay that they've lost 2 goals from a penalty and a really good strike from Bernabe, but they've not really been opened up at many points in that game. I mean, I do think second half it did open up a little bit because County had to try and have a go and get something out of the game. They couldn't quite manage it, but they had. I mean, Joe Hart wasn't really tested that much, to be honest. It was a comfortable afternoon for him. But when you're a Celtic keeper, with a Rangers keeper, even if you know that you're not really being tested, if you do get tested, you've got to be up for it. And he was. But he wasn't really tested enough. And Celtic just couldn't really get going. I'm sure that Postecoglou could be delighted with a win and the 3 points. I think he'll be disappointed at the performance. But as I say, when you come back after an international break, it can be very difficult to get in at your stride. And Celtic couldn't quite hit that today. You know, their big players didn't really perform at the level they should be. Jota, as I say, apart from the penalty, I don't think Jota had a great game. I didn't think Maeda was particularly great. Kyogo had an off day for him. You know, you're expecting that chance. If that falls to him, you're expecting him to burst the net with that. He just couldn't quite get the curl on it. So, yeah, it wasn't probably a great day for the Celtic strikers, but they've won. They've got 3 points from a difficult game. Ross County made that very difficult. They made that really tough for Celtic. They didn't let Celtic get the big players in the game. They stifled them, they pressed, they harassed, and they made it difficult. And you've got to give Malcolm McCred credit for that, because they could have easily, if they'd have come into the goal and got beat 5 or 6-0, the folk would have said you got your tactics wrong. You know, he's not done that, and they've got beat anyway. But I think they performed well. I think Ross County came proud of the performance today. They're not going to be judged in games against Celtic. No chance. They're not going to be judged on that. I still think Ross County will be okay. I still think they'll get out of that, because I know we'll get on to Kilmarnock later. I'm still not convinced by them, even though they beat Hearts. I still think Kilmarnock will be in that relegation zone. I think Ross County will be fine if they keep performing like that. But what they do in the next few games will probably define their season, but they won't be defined on games against Celtic.
Yeah, I was obviously you've made a number of points about like Celtic weren't at their best today. But they still managed to find that win. And it's very easy when you get into that winning streak that every week's not going to be a kind of 3 points and we've dominated the game. You're going to some weeks you play football and some weeks you win without performing, and that's what you sometimes it didn't click for you on the one day, but today was the day. Anyway, without me babbling on a bit, we are joined by Ross. How are you, Ross?
I'm good, thanks, guys. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no bother. Thanks for coming on. You're hot and you're just back from Dingwall. I take it you're disappointed you Ross County and now Celtic 2, but actually just talking about the game. What was we'll get to the VRs again in a minute, because I know maybe all flavours will have a different opinion on the penalty incident. But what do you make of Ross County overall?
I actually thought it was a good performance from County. I think coming away almost disappointed that we didn't take something from the game. Now, Celtic were wasteful with their chances. There's no denying that. They could have had on another day 3, 4, 5, quite easily. They've hit the bar and the post a couple of times. Carter Vickers should have scored in the first 10 minutes with the header in the 6-yard box. Ross Laidlaw's made a few saves. There's a few crosses that have gone across the 6-yard box. So on another day, Celtic could have been out of sight quite comfortably. But when you're only one goal behind in any game of football, up until stoppage time, you always think that there is a chance. And I think especially at the start of the second half, County pressed the Celtic back four really high. And for about 20, 25 minutes, actually Celtic looked a little bit rattled by it. And Joe Hart's made a great save from George Harman at the back post, and Jordan White's only a couple of inches from actually bundling the ball in. Then it could have been a totally different game. On the balance of it, Celtic deserved to win on the obviously the chances they created. But I mean, from a County point of view, I thought it was it was two different performances in each half. The first half, it was to stop Celtic playing through the kind of midfield, and I thought we did that really well. Went man for man with kind of like a low block defensively, and there was only, I think, maybe 2 occasions where Celtic kind of really got through that low block. I think it was Kyogo's chance he put wide after about, 25-30 minutes, and then the Laidlaw save just in the stroke of half time when they kind of bundled it into the box. But apart from that, I thought we looked defensively quite solid. Then obviously the penalty and the goal at the end of the first half then, means that we've got to come out and, get after the game. And, for that initial 20, 25 minutes of the high press, I thought we could have got something from the game, but we needed to take one of the chances that kind of came our way, or, if a ball kind of broke us in the box, you need to take these chances when we're coming up against any of the big teams. And it just didn't happen for us today. And then, after Callahan went off injured and we're down to 10 men, I think, we were kind of accepting of what was going to be the final result. I think, I think on the balance of the whole game, Celtic will have deserved it on chances created, but I'm very happy with Ross County's performance through it.
Well, were you surprised the way Ross County started? Because obviously we were talking about this before you come on, Ross, about I don't know if Celtic went flying out the crap, so maybe it was a very slow start from County from kickoff.
I think that was the game plan the entire time, was to it's an interesting tactic that they've kind of employed in the 3 games against Celtic, especially this season, that we're quite comfortable to let Carter Vickers and Starfelt have the ball and kind of come into the County half, and we'll have one of the 2 strikers probably cutting off the passing lanes, whether it to be into McGregor or O'Reilly, any of the midfielders that were playing in any of the games, and kind of everywhere else in the park they'd be going for man. Celtic playing with the inverted fullbacks as well. I think that's why Cancola and Guion Edwards kind of really nullified Taylor and Johnson at times, kind of getting forward. I didn't actually see a lot of them, especially in the first half. So it's a tactic that they've used a few times now, and on the occasions that they have, first league game of the season was 0-0 at halftime. Celtic Park was 0-0 at halftime, and they were very close to getting 0-0 at halftime again. Today, the League Cup game, I think, was a bit different. There was a change of shape, change of formation, things. But I wasn't surprised with the way we started. I kind of did expect that. I thought Celtic in the first half, I actually thought it was a slow start from them. I don't think they moved the ball quick enough to stretch the County midfield or defence anywhere near enough. The couple of times they did, I spoke about there, Kyogo's chance and then the save from Laidlaw. That's the couple of occasions that they did. But apart from that, it was quite comfortable, even in the wide areas when Jota had the ball or Maeda had the ball. It was quite comfortable, I felt like at times. So first half we were unlucky at the end of it, but it is what it is.
Graham, 44 minutes gone, Malcolm Mackay was going down the tunnel. I don't know if he was away for pie or Bovro, and they came back out the tunnel because it was a VAR, a header, and the last minute of the half. I know that me and you shares different opinions on this one, and maybe Ross will share another different opinion as well. It's all about opinions, this show, right enough. What do you make of it, Graham?
Get VAR in the bin. Chuck it in the bin. It's an absolute waste of time. That is never a penalty in a million years. Scandalous decision, as I put on Twitter, as I put in the group chat. What on earth? You can't jump with your hands by your side. Iacovitti is battling with Carter Vickers in the air. It hits off Carter Vickers' shoulder. What is Iacovitti meant to do with that? There is no chance that's a penalty. Never in a million years. If that's given against my team, I'm raging with that. I know Malky Mackay's not happy, and he's talked about the fact that if that's a penalty, it's a low bar. I completely agree with that. There is no chance that's a penalty. We've all seen really poor decisions this season from VAR. That is the worst one yet. How you can give a penalty for that? Willie Collum couldn't wait to give that. How you can give a penalty for that? Ross County worked so hard for that 44 minutes. They worked really hard. They tried to make it difficult for Celtic, which they did. They looked like they're going in 0-0. And then to have that given against them is an absolute disgrace. There is no words I can say strong enough. That's a disgrace.
Ross, I know you're just back from the game, but Malcolm Mackay was interviewed on Sky, and I don't know if you would agree with me, Graham, but he actually done well to hold it together. But he said that he wasn't going any further because he would get pulled up by the big boys at the SFA. So he did well on that account. Obviously, as you can imagine, if your manager or he did, definitely not a penalty. What was your? I know your answer here, but I need to ask you anyway. What do you think of it, Ross?
So by the letter of the law, it's a penalty. However, in footballing terms, it shouldn't be given. I mean, Graham said it there. You can't, defenders and attackers are jostling in the box the entire time. You cannot jump with your arms by your side in that situation. Now, Carter Vickers has gone to head the ball. He's missed the header, and Jakovic's arm is behind him, and it's hit his arm outstretched there. It was very interesting from where we were because initially, Willie Collum looked so we're kind of in line with the 6-yard box, and it was just in front of us. And I saw it hit Jakovic's hand, and I thought we might be in a bit of bother here just because of previous decisions given by VAR this season. Looked straight to Willie Collum, and Willie Collum went to raise his whistle, but then put it back down again. So I don't know if he's then thought initially, oh, that looks like a penalty. The linesman on the left-hand side behind the incident has seen it hit Jakovic's arm and said that could be a penalty, but then has allowed the play to continue. Now, is that potentially an official over-relying on VAR to bail him out? Potentially. I don't know. I mean, look, it's a penalty decision that you're delighted if it goes for you, but you're furious if it goes against you. And as Graham said there, the team worked so hard for that first half to try and get into halftime with a clean sheet and then go into the second half. And it would have been a completely different game. And, I think, there's VAR decisions that have gone against County this season that have been a bit questionable and, I've irked a lot of County fans. Obviously the well-documented kind of Celtic penalty decisions that have gone against them, been well publicised in the media and things like that. But there's been a few instances where, VAR has decided to get involved when it, in my opinion, shouldn't. But then also vice versa when I think it should be involved and there should be a decision made, but then there's not. So, look, I'm really gutted for the guys because they worked so hard in that first half to then have a decision like that go against them, to then go in 1-0 down. I don't even know. I can't even really criticize the decision because it's typical Scottish VAR at the moment. So.
Graham, that was a very interesting point that Ross is making. Obviously, that me and you are watching it on TV. Ross is actually at the game. We never saw were they putting his whistle to his mouth and then kind of saying, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm good." How many times have we said in the show on a Sunday or a Friday night, VAR is not there to ref the game. The ref is there to ref the game.
I'll say. Sorry, Ross, on you go.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to jump in there. He didn't quite raise it quite to his mouth. It was, he had his arms by his side, a whistle in his hand, and he's kind of gone halfway up like that, and then put it back down again. So he's not gone like the full, that's definitely a penalty. But he's either seen something, the linesman's told him, that's hit Jakovic's arm there. And first, natural reaction for a referee in a game, maybe not like 100% used to refereeing with VAR, was to bring the whistle up, but then has realised, hold on, he's got this tool here that can help him out, put it back down, and yeah, they've based a decision off that. But as you said there, Michael, it's not, VAR is not there to officiate games. It's there to correct clear and obvious errors. And it almost looked like Willie Collum decided that he was going to use that tool to make the decision for him, or to have the second look at it. Maybe the linesman's not seen it entirely clearly, but he says, I think that's come off a Ross County defender's arm. Colin might have seen it through a crowd of bodies, not sure. And then he's taken this opportunity for the referee at VAR to have a look at it, go and look at the screen himself, and then award it. But the problem is the bar's too low for clear and obvious, or it's a blurred line for what is clear and obvious and what's not. I think it's going to have to be assessed at the end of the season, I guess. But decisions that are going to be given, if there's going to be a ball hits a player in the arm like that between now and the end of the season, it's always going to be given, unfortunately, because of the bar that they've set, and they can't change it now. They can't drop it after today's game, or if a decision goes against a certain team, because then the uproar that will cause against fans of other teams that could have had those decisions early in the season. And that's my biggest problem with VAR, is that it was brought in during a season. It should have been either brought in at the start of this season, or if it wasn't ready, wait until next season. Because the fact we can have decisions made in 11 games this season without VAR, and then you've just got to put it down to, if there's a mistake made in the park, it's human error, referees made a mistake. However, then in the rest of the season, they're having this tool, but there's still mistakes being made. I mean, Andy Constantine's handball at Kilmarnock 2 weeks ago, I mean, how that's not given is unbelievable. So I just don't think there's no consistency, regardless of, I don't agree with it being brought in halfway through a season, but there isn't even any consistency with it right now. So
I mean, obviously, Malcolm Mackay said after the game as well that we are actually paying for this, Graham. He said that every club in the division is actually paying money for VR to come into the game, and they're still not getting it right.
I mean, I've said before in the show, and I'll keep repeating this, that for me, I think referees are basically refereeing games by VAR now. They're not making decisions on the pitch because they think, if I get this wrong, VAR will change it for me, it's fine. That's not what it's there for. I mean, I generally, when VAR came in, and I agree with Ross, I think we said this before, I don't agree with the fact that VAR was brought in halfway through a season. You bring it in at the start of the season, or you don't bring it at all. You bring it in halfway through a season is pointless. And the fact that we're paying for this and referees are still making the same mistakes. And I keep going back to the fact that you've got Ian Maxwell, the chief executive, when it came in, said it would be horrendous for the first few months. That's your own chief executive saying that. And it's been an absolute fail. It's been a failure. So many poor decisions. There was one up at Tannadice, I think. Was it Tony Watt got sent off and then it got rescinded on the back of having to go to, it got to VAR, and they still made their own decision. They're making far too many poor decisions. And as Malcolm Mackay has actually said, it's going to end up costing teams. It could cost teams top six. It could cost teams relegation. It can cost managers jobs. You've got to get these big decisions right. And too many referees are not doing that. And some of these decisions, like that one today, is an absolute joke. I don't know how. And again, I don't know how the guy in that VAR room can look at that and say, that's a penalty. And the worst thing is, how long did it take Willie Cole to make his mind up with that? He must have had about 2 looks and thought that's a penalty. I'm sorry, but that is never a penalty. You could get any fan in that VR room and would say, that's not a penalty. What is Jakoviti supposed to do there? His eyes are fully on the ball. What is he meant to do with that? It's a ridiculous decision. And I'm getting sick of her. Bin it now.
I think I totally agree. And I think there's been talk about, would it be good to have ex-professionals in the VAR room to help referees make these decisions and things like that. And at times you do wonder, the referees that do make the decision, how, like, they're not all going to be ex-pros, but, to what level have they potentially played the game? Because anyone that's played a game knows anyone that watches the game knows what goes on in the box between defenders and attackers, jostling for space, things like that. And, arms are going to be up, outstretched, things like that. Okay, Carter Vickers has missed it, and Jakovic's arm is outstretched. It's away from his body. It's made his body bigger. It's hit it. So I can understand why that's been given, but it's just it's frustrating, I think, is the main thing. But Graham, you touched on the Tony Watt red card there that was rescinded. I might be incorrect saying this, but I think that's the only red card that went to a VAR or was awarded by VAR that has been rescinded since it's been put in place. And I think at the time there was so much uproar at the decision to award a red card by VAR. Obviously, United then won the appeal on it, got it rescinded. But, I think of Jack Baldwin's red card against Motherwell a few weeks ago. Now, I don't think that's denying a clear goal scoring opportunity. Not because, okay, he's the last man, but it's the area on the park that he's at, and it's the touch that Van Veen takes that takes him into the box. You know, Van Veen's not getting on the end of that ball. I think Laidlaw is coming out to gather that before Van Veen can get there. It's if, buts, and maybes. I don't know. But I think now if you are to appeal a red card awarded by VAR, I fully believe that it's just going to be thrown out because they need to protect the integrity of VAR. And, you know, they can't have the potential of, VAR awarding red cards, costing teams points, and it being the incorrect decision in their view. Whereas, you know, if they just chuck the appeal out, regardless of how strong the appeal is or not, you know, I'm in agreement. I was all for VAR because of the decisions that were being made, but if it was brought in properly at the start of a season, so you knew it was going to be a level playing field throughout the whole season. But there's goals, there's red cards, there's penalty decisions that are being made in this part of the season that weren't being made in the first half because VAR wasn't in place. So it's I'm a bit bored of it as well. Just yeah.
The thing is as well, if you go back to before the break, the international break, you go back to the Andy Considine penalty that should have been given that wasn't given. VAR that weekend had an absolute shocker. They made some awful decisions. Look at the one that Curtis Main got the penalty for St Mirren against United. Yeah. Never a penalty again. Never a penalty. And I could go back to the one as well at Ibrox when Rangers played against, I think it was St Johnstone. Now, Nicky Clark got sent off. Willie Collum, the referee.
Yeah.
But then 2 minutes later, he doesn't send off Ryan Jack for a dangerous challenge. He is still the only referee who has gone to the monitor and not changed his decision. Ryan Jack should have been sent off for a dangerous challenge, but he wasn't. But he was quick to brand this red card for Nicky Clark. I just think some of these decisions are an absolute joke, and I don't know how. I mean, I know they've got to use the letter of the law, but surely as well, you've got to use common sense and say, no, that's not a good decision. Go back and change your mind. It's like referees are scared to change their mind because they think, oh, I maybe shouldn't have given that, but I can't really change my mind now. If you need to change your mind, change it. You might get more respect if you do that. Like if Willie Collum goes to the monitor today, I genuinely don't think, maybe they wouldn't, but I genuinely don't think if that happens the other way today, if that happened the other way around, are Celtic fans claiming a penalty for that? I don't think so. I just think the referees are getting this so badly wrong, and you can't afford to do that. We've got, 8 games left of the season? And my worry is that VAR is going to have a massive effect on something in this. Obviously not the title race, but potentially 3rd and 4th, potentially bottom of the league. You can't afford to get these decisions wrong. Malky Mackay's bang on when he says it could cost the manager his job. Of course it could. Or something that's not going to be his fault. I just think you've got to get these big calls right. And that one today is another example of referees getting decisions wrong.
Do you think it would make any difference, Ross? I know we spoke on the show when VAR came out. In fact, we speak about VAR every week on the show now. I don't know whether VAR actually sponsor the show because it's been mentioned that much on the show. But do you think it would make any difference if we make all the match officials full-time in Scotland, or will it not make any difference at all?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, at times today, I would say from both fans' point of view, I don't think some decisions could have been any worse at times. I think there was some really questionable decisions both ways. I mean, Malky got booked, I think, about just towards the end of the second half. I mean, there was a throw-in just down in front of him, and I think Conor Randall's going to play it up the line. And I don't know which Celtic player it was, but he's going to block it. And his arms are up in the air like this, and it's hit his hand. But the fourth official's standing right there. Willie Collum's there, and the linesman's looking directly at it as well. And none of them give a foul for it. And that's as blatant a handball as they come. Okay, it's not impacted it. It's not like in the box or anything like that, so VAR can't have a look at it. But if you're having 3 separate officials look at that and think, well, that's not handball, no wonder managers are going off their head, getting booked, because these are just they're common sense decisions. You know, you can see them in the stand. You know, I'll be pretty level headed, and if I think a county player's giving away a handball, I'll think, you know, we've gotten away with one there. I'm not going to be like, oh well, that's never a penalty. You know, it's honestly, I don't know. I think you know, a couple of my mates and I, we spoke about like VAR, and you know, obviously we spoke about the bar that I'll get involved in. You know, could it potentially be a good idea that, you know, likes of in tennis, you know, in each set they've got their appeals, So if a ball's called out, Hawkeye will check it and, they'll be able to see if the ball's called in or out. If they're successful, they keep their challenge. If they're unsuccessful, they lose their challenge. Would it be the worst idea for each team potentially going into a game to have one VAR or two VAR challenges each? And if they think there's a decision going against them, they could flag it up to a referee, fourth official, something like that. We'd like to VAR that. They have a look at it, and it's then, if it's okay, that's a clear and obvious error, you'll keep your challenge. If not, you'll lose that challenge and the game carries on. It's then you're not having, at times, especially when VAR first came in, it felt like every time the ball went out, the game was stopped for 20, 30 seconds while they went and had a look at just absolutely minimal stuff, So it was an idea that was put out there, but like right now, I don't think it can be any worse than it is. And I say that, but it'll be worse next week.
You make a good point, Rod. Before we move on and speak about other parts of the game, tennis, they have, 3 challenges in each set as well. But also, what I was saying to Graham and the other guys on the show the last few weeks is there should be a time limit on the ref making the decisions. So, like, you had the Celtic St Mirren game the other week where St Mirren got a penalty, but they took and it was a shy to Celtic, and it was like a full minute after the decision.
Yeah.
And then after the shy, or before the shy, sorry, it was before the shy because the ball was out, they actually pulled it back for a penalty. Now, I don't really understand. I do understand it. I don't like it. But in terms of, like, if a team goes up the park, like Ross County went up the park and scored, the goal would be wiped out because the ball would have been brought back for a penalty kick or whatever. That's not... I don't think that's fair, but I think, like, the refs are making a mockery over in Scottish football because you had like 8 minutes at the end of the first half today, and I think you had 9 minutes towards at the end of the second half as well. But do you think that there should be like a time limit on to make your decisions, maybe like a minute or a minute and a half?
Potentially. I think, when referees are taking this amount of time, it's not a clear and obvious error. I don't know how they can take a minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes to decide, I'll go over to the screen, or they've gone over the screen and that's the time it's taken from the whistle first going to then them making their decision or changing their decision, because that's not clear and obvious. To me, if you can see it's a clear and obvious error, straight away, I've missed something here. It doesn't need that length of time. They don't need to go and view it again and again and again, or whoever's at VAR view it again and again and again. You can quite clearly say, it's not difficult to say that's a handball. You've missed that one. You might well have a look at it. Okay, jog over, have a look. I've missed that. Award the spot kick or something along those lines. I think the penalty that County were awarded against Motherwell a few weeks ago, the amount of time that took to overturn, that they were watching it over and over again, it's just, and it was a foul, Jakovic foul, Butcher in the build up to it. It was obvious. So why is it taking so long to realize that or to put it in place? I think it's so frustrating to sit through just now. So,
well, the other way to could get lost is if we didn't have VR, and that wouldn't be a penalty to get. And you would go in, and I know it's buts and maybes and all the rest of it, but you could go in and 0-0 at half time.
Yeah, well, and that's the point I make. If that decision was, if that incident happened in the first Celtic County game in Dingwall at the start of the season, nothing would have been given. And that's my issue, is that there's decisions being made now because they've got the tool VAR to, correctly or incorrectly, depends how you view it, change this decision or award the correct decision. Excuse me. But then in the first 11, there's not that. As I said, there's goals that have been scored, goals that have been conceded that, have been given offside since VAR has been put in place. But, first 11 games of the season, you know, it's not there, and you've just got to deal with it. The guy's 2 yards offside, and the goal goes in. You just got to shrug your shoulders. I mean, there's still points in those first 11 games that will total up to your end of season total, whether you stay up, you know, Graham said there, relegation, third, fourth place, top six, bottom six, you know, those 11 games aren't, you know, their own entity. They are included in the whole season. And that's why I really don't agree that it's been brought in halfway through. I mean, if VAR was in place from the start of the season, you know, when we went to Ibrox at the start of the season, we would have been playing against 10 men for majority of the game when James Sands hauled down Jordi Hawula. You know, that's, you know, I can name instances that happened in the first 11 games that if VAR was in place, it would have overturned and potentially helped County, but also hindered County. You know, the Kilmarnock game at the start of the season, we should have been down to 9 men very early on. You know, Ross Callahan should have been sent off in the first half, and then Baldwin should have been sent off in the second, and they were awarded red cards by the compliance officer, I think, the following week. You know, so but then that's done Kilmarnock out of points there potentially. So, you know, if VAR was in place there, it would have been a totally different game, totally different outcome potentially. So I just, it's that's the main thing that frustrates me, is that it's come in halfway. There's no consistency.
So Graham, Ross County went in 1-0 down at half time. But as we were talking about before Ross came on today, it was a bit of second half performance by Ross County.
Yeah, well, I think they had to open up a little bit because they're 1-0 down. They had nothing really to lose. I think had they gone to 0-0, nothing would have changed. They would have kept playing exactly the same way. But they did have to open up a little bit second half. You know, I thought they couldn't really get Brophy and White into the game too much, who I actually do think are very good players. I think Brophy's been a great signing. But, you know, Celtic did have a few decent chances second half. And as I say, I don't know how Kyogo misses. A guy of his quality should not be missing that kind of chance. Celtic did have chances, but always thought County was still in the game. At 1-0 up, you're always still in the game. And they had that chance in the second half where they headed at the back post that maybe could do better. But, you know, as I say, it's a great strike for Bernabe. Really cuts across that. It's a really good strike. But County put a lot into that game. They were really good today, I thought. You know, I think Malky Mackay's got a good side there. I said weeks ago that I think Simon Murray will be a good signing for Ross County. So they do have a good side there. I still think they'll get out of this. They're only 4 points behind Kilmarnock, and they know that when the split comes, they're playing against teams in and around them. County can still get out of this. I don't think they'll be in the playoff. I still think it'll be Kilmarnock. So I think County are a decent side. I think Malky Mackay's done a great job. And the funny thing is, we're talking about VAR. When VAR came in, I think pretty much everyone said we'll have nothing to talk about. Since VAR came in, pretty much every week on the show, it's all we ever talk about is VAR. So that just goes to show how bad it's been. But I think County can be proud of what they did today. You know, I said earlier, they're not going to be defined on games against Celtic. Today was always going to be a kind of free hit. They're playing against the champions, playing against a top team. And they stifle Celtic. You know, guys like Jota, Maeda and Kyogo didn't get into the game. I do think that Celtic, I know they've got a strong squad. I do think they did miss Aaron Moy and Hatate today.
Yep.
I thought Iwata was okay, but he's not Hatate. And I do think Aaron Moy was a huge miss. You know, his creativity, his bombing forward. But County did very well. They didn't give up that many chances. And it's not like Celtic cut through them time and time again. It was only in the second half when County were chasing the game that Celtic started to get chances. But I think County are going to be absolutely fine. I think they've got a very good squad. They've got a very good manager. And if they can perform like they did today against other teams, they'll be fine.
Ross, I know a bit before the game that you were going up against Celtic, so you were going up basically 2 levels compared to playing against Kilmarnock and Dundee United. And I'm not going to say Hearts because Graham might hit me for saying, well, he can hit me. He's miles away from me. But after that yesterday's performance, you know,
don't worry, I'll rant about that shortly. Don't worry.
You might agree with me, but like, you know, if you were given like a 2-0 defeat before the game, I know you would prefer Ross County to win 2-0, but if you were given a 2-0 defeat before the game, would you take it, and would you take the performance of the second half?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, we've seen this season that Celtic can blow away teams. I mean, you know, they beat Dundee United 9-0 at Tannadice. That shows that what they can do to teams. And they could have done that today with the chances that they created in the second half when the game became really stretched. You know, they could have killed the game off so much earlier than they actually did. I mean, Graham mentioned the Kyogo chance there. That's a great chance. They've hit the bar, they've hit the crossbar. You know, there's balls flashed across the box. Laidlaw's made a few decent saves as well. So on their day, they can tear you apart. I mean, it was only, I think, this time last year, and I think it was actually in March, that County went to Selhurst Park and they were 3-0 down within half an hour and down to 10 men. You know, that's how quickly a game can get away from you. So I think in the 3 league fixtures that we've played against Celtic this season, I think we've always been in the game, you know, and it's always taken a late goal, you know, the late third up in Dingwall at the start of the season to kill the game, or things like that. So it's you know, I'm delighted with the performance, and just not to single out anyone as such, because I thought it was a really good team performance. Dylan Smith coming in for his first professional start as a 16-year-old against the best team in the league, you know, forwards that are worth millions of pounds, and not looking out of place. It did really, really well. I think that deserves a lot of praise. I mean, he's been involved with the Scotland under-17s now for a few camps this season, and he's come off the bench a few times and he's looked very comfortable. But then just to see him kind of almost like thrown into a sink or swim situation, you know, he dealt with it brilliantly. I thought he was excellent throughout. So yeah, like there's definitely positives to take going forward. I do agree with Graham. I'm more optimistic between now and the end of the season that I think we'll get enough points to stay up. I mean, if we play like that, you know, I think we'll cause most teams that we play bother. I mean, we've got St Johnstone at McDermott Park next week. There wasn't much between the sides at McDermott Park early in the season, and then it was the first game back after the World Cup break that we were 1-0 up and really comfortable. It only looked like there was going to be 1-1 in the game, and then we're put down to 10 men, and St Johnstone go on to win the game there. So I don't think there's anything between the teams there. Aberdeen, it's been two draws between this season. You know, we got a late equaliser in Dingwall at the start of the season, and then 0-0 at New Year. And then the last game before the splits is Hearts at Tynecastle. And Graham, you'll know yourself. I mean, the 2 performances that County have had against Hearts this season, I mean, how we've come away with 0 points out of both of them is beyond me. You know, I think it almost sums up our season, that we've struggled to score goals, but we've created decent chances. We just didn't put them away, especially at the start of the season. That's kind of resolved a little bit now with like Brophy linking up really well with Jordan White. I mean, we've still got Jan Danda to come back in. Jan was a big miss today. I think with his creativity, that could have given us potentially a better chance even in the second half if we're chasing a game. Someone that can open up a back line with a through pass, or he's been a big miss the last couple of games. So hopefully his injury is not long term and we see him back soon. But the teams that I've seen around us, I do think we're better than, but we just need to pick up points now to start proving it. You know, 4 points between ourselves and Kilmarnock is, you know, that's 2 games. You know, we've got to pick up points in 2 games that they don't pick up 2 points in now. And with their home form, you know, if they stay up, that's what will keep them up. So we definitely, I'm confident going into the games. If we perform like that between now and the end of the season, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I watched that, obviously, the opening game at Tynecastle, and Ross County absolutely battered us. We should have been about 3 or 4 down. I honestly don't know how we won that game, and the game at Ross County was exactly the same. We probably didn't deserve to win that game, but, you know, County have had a kind of up and down season, but I think the signs have been really good. I've been really impressed with Brophy. I think White's done a lot better. I think Simon Murray will score goals if he gets a chance. And actually, one of the players that I thought was really good today, and I've not seen him a lot, I actually thought David Cancola was very good today as well.
Yeah,
I think Cancola's not been getting much of a game recently, but he's, you know, he always comes in and does a job. You know, you know what you get with David. Really calm, composed on the ball. You know, work his backside off through an entire game. You know, it might not last the full 90 minutes, but you know what you'll get from his determination, passion on the field. You know, he'll dig in. You know, he's someone that you'll want there if you're going into, you know, a 6-pointer, you know, and you're having to really kind of dig in to get a result. You can rely on Cancola. I think a signing that I've been really impressed with, he went off injured early in the second half today, but was Guion Edwards as well. I think he's been a really good signing from Wigan. You know, he maybe didn't show it quite as much as he has done in previous weeks going forward, but I think you know, his experience, you know, he was buying fouls take the pressure off the back four, especially in the first half. You know, he had a driving run and was quite unlucky to put one just past the post just before he went off injured. You know, Hart was flat-footed. I think if it's a yard or two to the right-hand side, it's in the bottom corner, and it's 1-1. But I've been really impressed with him, and I've already spoken about Dylan Smith. Victor Loturi got the sponsors man of the match today in the ground. I thought he did really well. His ball retention at times was very good, and you know he's got a bit of flair about him as well. I think he skinned Johnson on the far touchline a couple of times, and then put a ball into the box. Okay, overhit the pass, but you know he's still very raw. He was involved in the Canada squad just over the international break for the first time. He didn't get his first cap, which I actually saw a few Canadian fans actually complaining about, because there's South Sudan called him up to their preliminary squad for their international matches, but then he's from Canada, he's Canadian, so they've then called him up to potentially cap tie him from losing him in the future if he goes on to become a better player than he is now. So they were quite frustrated that he didn't get a game in either of the two games that they had over the break. Just to tie him down, you know, to not potentially lose him. But it was a good performance. I'm disappointed we've come away with no points. On the balance of the game, it's probably right that we didn't. But I think on another day when Celtic aren't clinical like that, you're always in with a chance. All it takes is a set piece, a moment of magic, you know, crossing to the box is not dealt with properly, a defensive mistake, and you're level. You know, Celtic, as I said, Celtic could have killed the game so much earlier, but they didn't. And you always have a glimmer of hope, but it was quickly snuffed out by a really good second goal. So yeah.
Glenn, before we move on, Bernabei come off the bench. He scored a first goal for Celtic, brilliant goal. But as you spoke about over the past couple of weeks on the show, that just show you the strength and depth of the bench, because I thought all played pretty well when they come on. And Taylor had a chance in the second half as well. Another sub that probably the forgotten man sometimes in terms of the Celtic fans. But I thought they all played a part when they come on.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We talk about this a lot. The squad that Celtic have got, even if you lose a couple of players like Hatate and like Moy, they still have a strong squad. You know, I do think Iwata was okay, but he's not the same kind of player as Hatate. And yet, you bring in players off the bench with that quality, you're always going to have a chance. And it's a great strike for Bernabe. And, you know, Greg Taylor had those couple of chances in the first half, hit the post. He was probably a big threat for Celtic down that left-hand side in the first half. And actually, you're right. I thought O was very good when he came on. There was one bit, I think, in the second half where he turned his man and gets a really decent shot away and he just puts it wide. He looks a really good player, actually. He looks stronger than what Giakoumakis was. I think he looks a very, very good prospect, and that's what Celtic have got. You know, they go into that big game against Rangers next week with probably have a fully fit squad, I would think, next week. But you can take 3 or 4 players at the Celtic side and they are still very strong. You know, we spoke about this on Friday. The fact that David Turnbull can't get a game with that Celtic side, a guy with his ability, it's just such a strong squad. And you know that even if Celtic aren't playing well, they have that ability. They can turn a game in the space of 2 minutes. And yeah, you know, Bernabe comes off the bench, not had a lot of game time, and strikes a sweet left foot strike. And the game was done. But Celtic have got a very strong squad. And I've said this before, it's a massive worry for me. It's a massive worry for everybody in the league that Celtic are going to get stronger. Rangers are going to get stronger. I think now Celtic are like 40 points ahead of Hearts in third place, which is an embarrassment. I've said this numerous times. It's embarrassing. You need a stronger league. You need a bigger league. You need to be. It's very hard to compete against Celtic Rangers. I know that, but when you're looking at that league as an outsider, you're thinking, well, that's not a very good league, is it? I think something needs to be done to try and compete at a better level, because it's frightening how much Celtic are ahead of everyone else. And I think Rangers are quite a few points ahead of Hearts as well. I don't know what you can do to kind of solve that, but it's getting beyond a joke now how uncompetitive this league is. And I'll get on to Hearts shortly because we were awful yesterday. But yeah, it's not a great look for me.
I think, I think that's a really good point. I think gone are the days that if Celtic make 4, 5, 6 changes, you're thinking, oh, we're in with a shout here. You're kind of rubbing your hands together, thinking, right, we can get at this centre half. In the League Cup game, I think they made 11 changes or 10 changes, and they still beat us 4-1. And they're the substitutions they're making now, they're bringing on full internationals, players worth 3, 4, 5 million pounds that they're spending money on. It's gone are the days that they'll bring on maybe a couple of youth players or a player that's come in and they've not hit the ground running. I think of the last Neil Lennon season or the COVID season. If that Celtic team were to make a few changes, you think, right, we can kind of get something here. And the finances do definitely play a big part in that. And the gap will just continue, I think, to get bigger and bigger with Celtic and Rangers qualifying for Europa Leagues, Champions Leagues, and the gap between those two and the rest will continue to get bigger and bigger. And, you see the arguments of some fans being like, well, you just need to use your money, more wisely and kind of generate revenue different ways. And it's very difficult to do that when, Celtic are selling players for, Juranovic went for, what was it, 10 million? Was it? They're selling players for figures like that. Whereas, our record signing as a club was Victor Laturi for about 70 or 80,000 pound, and, if we sell him on, we'll probably get 300, 400k for him. It's just, you can't compete with those above them. And I think the gap could potentially even get bigger to, whether it be Hearts that finish in third or an Aberdeen or a Hibs, with whoever finishes in third and gets that potentially guaranteed European spot. They'll just generate more and more money as well. And, okay, Hearts maybe haven't not used it as wisely this season, but the gap is a lot closer than it was last season. But there's potential for if someone finishes in third place for 2-3 seasons in a row, they could just detach themselves from the rest as well. And they almost hit like a no man land. Like they've not got the money there to challenge the top two, but then they've got enough money to quite comfortably deal with the rest. So there's an issue there that needs to be solved, but it's beyond my thinking to how it would be solved, so.
So, Ross, thanks for coming on again. The next time we'll have you on, hopefully, Ross County will have 3 points in the bank. So, thanks for coming on again, definitely. Ross.
Cheers, guys. Thank
we'll
you.
see you soon.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Thank you. Have a good day.
Ross.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. There you go. That was Ross County. Ross, as a Ross County fan, final score: Ross County 2. Ross County nil, Celtic 2. Before I get into trouble, let's move on. Okay, we've got an hour left on the show, so I think we're going to spend the next half an hour speaking about the game yesterday at Rugby Park. I know you spoke to us on Friday about it's going to be a very difficult game for Kilmarnock, but for Hearts, but I didn't see this coming, that Kilmarnock winning the game by 2-1. When I saw the highlights last night, Graham, I was kind of disappointed in Hearts' approach to the game. I thought they were quite poor.
Oh, you and me both. No, I mean, I'll get on to Hearts in a minute, but I have to give credit to Kilmarnock. I have slated them a bit this season for not being a particularly great side. I thought they'd be in relegation trouble. I still think they will be. They'd lost 5 games up until yesterday. That wasn't a surprise to me, the way the Hearts were playing, that they won that game. But Kilmarnock wanted that more than us. Kilmarnock were up for that. They were in our faces. They didn't really give us any time and space in the ball. The only chance we really had was the goal from Shankland, a great goal. But Kilmarnock defended very well. They were much, much better than I've seen them for a long, long time. They caused us numerous problems. As I said before on Friday, balls into the box worry me because we can't defend them. And of course, that's what happens with the goals. And they could have been ahead after 5 minutes. It's a free kick from Jordan Jones into the back post, and Joe Wright probably should score. And that set a Lambert ringing with me. And all through the game, Kilmarnock were just a better team. And the worrying thing is for me, when they went down to 10 men, Rory McKenzie, and it was a red card. It was a late challenge on Josh Grant. I know he gets the ball, but it's the follow-through that catches Grant quite high.
Yeah, it was a terrible tackle.
Yeah. When he got sent off, at no point in that game did I think we'll get back in this game, because we were offering nothing. And I'll get onto Hearts in a minute, but Kilmarnock deserved the 3 points. There's no doubt about that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They deserved the 3 points. They were the better team. They wanted it more. They worked harder than us, which really annoys me. And they deserved the 3 points. I still think they'll be in that relegation zone. I still think they might finish in the second bottom. As I say, Ross County and Kilmarnock and the European teams around them after the split. So we'll see a lot more after that. But in terms of Hearts, after the Aberdeen game, Lawrence Shanklin came out and said that we basically did the same mistakes against Motherwell weeks before that. We did exactly the same thing yesterday. Now, I went into this game thinking, daft old me, I thought we'll have a reaction after Aberdeen. We didn't get one. Now, again, I heard Robbie Nielsen's comments after the game that said, when we did the basics right, we played well. No, we didn't. Not one Hearts fan thought we played well yesterday. We didn't do any basics right. We were sloppy in possession. We played too many long balls. We were slow in midfield. I thought Keogh is, I said this on Twitter, Orestes came at Soglo. We paid £350,000 for him. That boy is never a footballer in a million years. He's terrible. He's 6'2", and he gets knocked off the ball so easily. He's got nothing about him. He's a terrible footballer. Him and Snodgrass can't run. If we're going to play those two, you need somebody with legs in beside them. We don't have that. We missed Cammy Devlin yesterday for that energy. For me, I am dropping Snodgrass, and I'm never playing Keogh again because he's awful. But defensively, we were dreadful. Now, Xander Clark, who I think has been excellent since he deputised for Craig Gordon, he was at fault for both goals today. The first goal, it's a decent strike from Liam Donnelly, but a keeper as Xander Clark's quality has got to be better than that. It's really poor goalkeeping, and then he compounds his mistake by bringing down Kyle Vassell. It's a definite penalty. He should have been taken off. We spoke about this before the game, before the show. He should have been taken off when he was down injured. That was poor management for me. I don't care if Xander Clark said that he's fit to carry on. He wasn't fit. And that second goal proved that. Again, ball at the box, Xander Clark is nowhere near it. And of course, it's the ex-Hibs man, Christian Deutsch, that scores the goal. All the irony. But we were terrible. Absolutely awful that whole game. Nothing changed from Aberdeen. It was the same lacklustre performance, the same pedestrian passing, the same possession for possession's sake and not going anywhere. And as I said earlier, when you're 2-1 down and you've got a man extra, that half an hour you're a man down, we need to score 2 goals. A point was not enough. Aberdeen were winning the game. A point was not enough. We had to win that game. And at no point did I think we'll get back in this game. We offered nothing. And the worrying thing is, Kilmarnock had more chances with 10 men than we did. That's a massive worry. And I will say this now, live on here, and I've said this on my Twitter space as well, I think Robbie Nielsen's got to go. Now, I have been a massive Robbie fan for a long, long time, but right now, those players are not playing for him. He's lost the dressing room. Those players are not doing the basics right. The fan base are fully wanting him gone. I think a change has got to be made. Now, you saw what happened with Motherwell. They got rid of Stevie Hamill, Stuart Ketworth come in, and apart from the Rangers game, they're unbeaten. Aberdeen under Jim Goodwin, they were terrible. They bring in Barry Robson, they've had a turnaround. We need that now. Robbie Nielsen's got to go. And I hate saying it because I've been behind them, but right now, performance level is nowhere near good enough, and we're going to blow third place. We had an 11-point lead. We're now 1 point ahead. Robbie's got to go. I hate to say it, but he's got to go.
Do you think he's only one game away from getting a sack, Graham, if he doesn't get 3 points?
I think I say this a lot on the show, that he's only ever 1 defeat away from folk wanting him gone. I now agree with that because he won't get sacked this week. He's a point ahead, still third. He won't get sacked this week. But we play St Mirren at Tynecastle next week. That's going to be a hard game. Aberdeen play Kilmarnock at Pittodrie, which I've got to assume will be an Aberdeen win. We could be behind them going into next week. That is unacceptable for me. So I think if Hearts lose next week and Robbie Nielsen doesn't get sacked, you will see fans at Tynecastle on that plaza protesting. And I'm fully behind them because there's something not right. There's a disconnect between the club and the fans right now. Everyone can see it. We're making the same mistakes every week and nothing's getting done. You know, Robbie Nielsen's comments after the game yesterday, talking about doing the basics right, talking about it wasn't good enough. It's the same every week. He's saying the same thing every week and nothing changes. Something's got to change. I mean, I watched the game yesterday, and at one point in the second half, I think it was late on in the game, Robert Snodgrass had the ball and he got caught out. And the Hearts commentator, I think Snodgrass thought he was getting a free kick. And the Hearts commentator actually said, "You're not going to get that. Get up." He basically just lay on the ground and didn't move. Snodgrass has been I do like Snodgrass, he's a good player, but he's not got the legs anymore. He needs to get benched, and we need legs in that team. I do think we missed Cameron Devlin yesterday. His energy, he was obviously had that concussion from when he was out with Australia, I think it was. He wasn't fit. We need legs in that team. We need legs in midfield because that is not good enough. And yesterday, again, I said the Aberdeen game was massive. We lost. I said the Aberdeen game was huge. We lost. I said yesterday was massive. We lost. The St Mirren game now, for me, is our biggest game of the season. We lose that, I am genuinely worried that we're not going to get third.
Well, yeah, in this Morrison's commented on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and this hopefully you will. He's basically saying the same as you, Graham, that the players are clear they don't want to play under Nielsen.
I think it shows, and for weeks we've played players at position. We played Lawrence Shankland deep because we were trying to accommodate playing Josh Ginnelly up front for his pace. And yeah, Ginnelly's done well. He scored goals, but you've lost that attacking threat that Shankland gives. And lo and behold, he plays him up front yesterday and he scores. Who knew? 22 goals this season. He's continually playing players out of position. Yesterday, he actually did two things that most fans wanted him to do. He changed formation, went 4 at the back. That's fine. And he binned Barry Mackay. I agree with that as well. But the one thing he did do was he kept playing Keogh, who can't run and is awful, and Snodgrass, who can't run. So you've got no legs in midfield. He's got to change that for me. I think he needs to change formation again. He's got to go 4-4-2. For me, he needs to take Keogh and Snodgrass out and play Cammy Devlin and either George Grant or even, I never thought I'd find myself saying this, Andy Halliday, because Keogh and Snodgrass do not work as a partnership. It's awful. And again, defensively, we are so easy to play against. We are so easy to work out how to play against. See if a team was sticking a shot in the top corner for 30 yards, that's fine. Nothing to do about that. But teams are not having to work hard against us. And that's a big issue that I've got. We are not working hard enough. Now, that's got to come from the dressing room. And I heard some pundits yesterday that probably don't watch Hearts, never seen their games in their life. Some pundits said yesterday that you can't motivate unmotivated players. How can you not? That's your job. Now, I do agree that players should be motivated themselves, but that's what a manager's got to do. He's got to motivate them. And I don't think Robbie Nielsen's motivating that squad at all. We've blown an 11-point advantage to 1 point. That is unacceptable. And if we lose third, somebody messaged me on Twitter yesterday saying, we could still get fourth. That's not good enough. We need third place. The money you get for third, getting group stage European football, is massive. We can't finish fourth. The budget is there for third place. That's not... And Budge and Joe Savage does not start the season saying fourth is fine. No, it's not. Hearts fans are not ploughing money into the club to finish fourth. We have to finish third. And that's why I'm saying now, we have to get rid of Robbie Nielsen right now.
James Elliott says that he's watching this on his big TV. I'm sorry, James, but we're not buying you a new TV if it doesn't work after the show tonight. Also, he says Robbie to Leicester. So there you go. Going back on what you were saying, Graham, about Xander Clark, and it was his kind of fault for the second goal. And I know that you were saying early on about, like players want to play football even though they're carrying an injury. But yeah, as you were saying, it's bad man management, because Robbie Nielsen or Lee McCulloch should be saying, well, tough, you're coming off. But I mean, we don't know. I mean, if Jamie McDonald goes and goes, maybe he would have lost that goal as well. You would never know. But I mean, the manager should be there and saying, well, you're coming off injured or not. And lo and behold, Kilmarnock scored the second goal and the game was over.
It was pretty clear to me watching the game that he was struggling. I could see that. I think all the fans could see it. I think the physio should have been saying to Xander, you can't carry on. And he should be sent to the bench. And actually, Ross Stewart was stripped and ready to come on, and he didn't bring him on. And it cost us a second goal. Now, I'm not a massive fan of Ross Stewart. I think he's a terrible goalkeeper. But when you've got a guy that's fit, you bring him on. And it was quite clear to me, Xander Clark should not have carried on. And both goals are his fault. And he knows that himself. The fact he then gets subbed at half-time, that should have been made a lot earlier than that. It was poor management for me, and I think the physio's got to take responsibility as well. He should have been saying, nah, you need to come off. You're not right. And you could clearly see it. I mean, if it's his hamstring as well, that's probably, well, known Hearts are about 5 weeks out or 6 months out, because we don't tend to do 2 weeks out. It's months. So he could be out for a few weeks or a few months now with that. And it should never have got to that stage. You should have taken him off straight away when he was lying on the ground and it was clear that he wasn't fit. So again, that's another thing that Robbie and the coaching staff have got wrong. And I genuinely don't know what Lee McCulloch and Gordon Forrest do in the backroom staff. I don't know what they're there for, because they're not doing a lot. Because they should be telling Robbie something's not working. And I've said this as well numerous times. You've got experienced players in that squad. You've got Robert Snodgrass. You've got Michael Smith. You've got Lawrence Shankland. They should be saying to Robert Nielsen, something's not right here. Something's not working here. Now, apparently after Aberdeen, they had this crisis meeting. Well, it's clearly not worked, because they're still making the same mistakes every single week. Something's not getting through. Something is not quite right. There were 2,200 Hearts fans at that game yesterday, paying hard money to go through and watch that. And again, they've been left with another dreadful performance. And Robert Nielsen's comments that are just ridiculous again.
The only goal for Hearts yesterday, Roland Shankland's 18th goal of the season. Now, I know that you get beat 2-1, Graham, but I think that's a good return for Lawrence Shankland to score 18 goals this season for Hearts. But I mean, looking back at the game, it was embarrassing for the third place team going to the second bottom team in the league and getting well beat, you would say.
It was, and again, had we played well, had we lost obviously 2 mistakes, but had we lost having played well and just been a bit unlucky, I could have said, right, you know what, write this off, it's happened. But it's the level of performance again. It's the same thing every week. We, as fans, see it every single week. And we always talk about the same thing every week. We can't defend. We're terrible at crosses into the box. And the midfield doesn't work. And I think, Lawrence Shankland in total this season's got 22 goals in League and Cup, which is a brilliant return. I always knew that Shankland would score goals when he's played up front. And, he is the only kind of very few shining lights we've had this season. There's not been very many. And Shankland's been great for us. He's taken on the captaincy really, really well. And again, I think he will be a voice in that dressing room, but other players have got to step up. Too many players now just don't look, I hate to say it, but they don't look interested. It's like when they get beat, it doesn't matter. Whereas as fans, we're raging. We're furious after defeats. I don't think there's enough players in that team that are raging after a defeat. And yesterday was awful, but not a surprise. As I said, Kilmarnock wanted that more. Kilmarnock fought for everything. Kilmarnock put bodies on the line. Even when they went down to 10 men, I hate saying this, but they were comfortable. There was nothing about Hearts in that second half. When they're down to 10 men, Hearts should have made changes early. Should have even gone 4-2-4. I remember Jimmy Caldwell used to do this at Dunfermline whenever they were getting beat. He would just chuck players up front. But, and I said this in one of my Twitter chats as well, our treatment of Garan Kuyol has been an absolute disgrace. We bring the laddie in. He's only 18. We bring him in from Newcastle. We barely play him. He scores for Australia a few weeks ago. He doesn't get any minutes yesterday. And it's just a pointless signing. And I really feel sorry for him. I really do, because he's getting no game time. How do we know if the guy's any good if he doesn't get games? I just think the treatment of him has been an absolute embarrassment. And I genuinely think he'll go back to Newcastle. He got farmed out on loan to a Championship or League One club, and he'll be really good because we've not treated him with the respect he probably deserves. And I just think Robbie has got a lot wrong this season. You know, he plays Gareth Cuyol against Rangers, which was a dreadful decision to make, playing him alongside Barry McCann, Robert Snodgrass, and he got totally found out at that level. But how do you know if he's going to make it if you don't play him? He should have been chucked on yesterday for the last 10 minutes to see what he could do. We needed a goal. And honestly, the only good thing that's come out of the season so far is the fact that Shankland's been very, very good. And I think there's been moments this season. I think Toby Sibbick's had a decent season. Ginelli's been okay. But far too many players just now look like they're just not trying. And that's not good enough. I never want to see a player not trying for my team. And that's happening too often now.
And I was just going to say to you that would you agree with me that the last decent Hearts performance was at Celtic Park a few weeks ago, where they get beat, but they still put in a good performance. But when you think about the team that night, Graham, Robbie dropped half of the team and brought in some of the youth guys, and maybe that's what you've got to do. You know, pagging the punt, but show a bit of heart for the team. I mean, even the game against Celtic at Tynecastle the other week in the Scottish Cup. I mean, I don't remember a time where Celtic went there and think it's so. I don't want to use the word easy, but comfortable as well, you would say. But I mean, I don't think Hearts can put up a fight in that game. So would you say that the last decent game Hearts played was at Parkhead? They get beat 2-0, but basically they put up a bit of a fight.
I think that's probably stretching a bit too far. I don't even think we played that well that day. I think Josh Ginelli got that goal, but after that, we didn't create a lot. You know, we never tend to do against Celtic and Rangers anyway. But the problem is, again, you've mentioned youth there. Robbie doesn't play young players. It's a common thing with Hearts now. He doesn't give youth a chance. You know, I've said before, I'm a massive fan of Finlay Pollock. I was a huge fan of Connor Smith. Yet we let Connor Smith go out and loan to Hamilton. I mean, it's always been a thing about Hearts just now that we don't have. We always talk about the fact we've got this great youth system at Tynecastle. We've got the great youth system of the Orem. Well, where is it? Where's the fruits of labour? Where are these young players that are coming through? Harry Cochrane. I said this earlier. Harry Cochrane, 16, played against Celtic, scored the goal. Where is he now? He's playing in the lower leagues. We just don't develop young players that are good enough or what we think aren't good enough. And I think for me, and Innes makes a good point here as well, unacceptable that he would rather play Humphreys at right wing than Cuyol. Again, when you're bringing Humphreys on yesterday, he sticks him at right wing when he's a striker. Stick him up front, put Cuyol out wide. But again, it's the way that Robbie plays. It's far too negative. And I would like to see youngsters getting a chance, but it's not a thing that Robbie does. And I will always, you should never lose a game not working hard. If you lose a game with teams got more quality, that's fine. But we're getting beat because players are working harder than us. That should never, ever happen. But it's happening every week. You know, Celtic, you were right. You used the word easy, and it was. That game at Tynecastle in the Cup, I know some Hearts fans thought we might get something out of that game. I never did, because I never expected us to beat Celtic and Rangers. And it was too easy. And too many times now we're just getting beat far too comfortably. Teams are not having to work hard, and that is a real gripe that I've got. Teams are not having to work hard to beat us. You know, it's that old phrase that hard work beats ability if ability doesn't work hard. We have players that have got ability, but they're not working hard enough.
And I think when we were talking about in the show a few weeks ago about Celtic and Rangers just get more money and all the rest of it, and that's why we want Celtic and Rangers out the league so that Hearts and Hibs can win the league. But that kind of backs up my point, Graham, a wee bit, because if you bleed youth into the youth team, they're not actually scared to, you know, play well because they're playing the game as though it was their very last game, and that's really my point. And the senior guys and the backing that up at the moment.
Young players you will find get more time with fans because they are young. You know, they will. I've seen numerous times that Hearts have brought a young player on, and they've actually done really well because they've got no fear. They try hard. They want to be in the team, so they work harder. And we don't do that at Hearts now. We don't have that young player, that young generation coming through. Like, I think Bobby McCluskey for the B team is a very good player, but he's not going to get game time. You look at the Celtic Cup game, we couldn't even fill the bench. We only had 7 subs. Why not put a couple of youngsters on the bench? And even though we're getting beat, chuck them on for the last 10 minutes, give them a bit of experience. But that's not something Robbie does. I think at times we are scared to play young players because it means too much to finish third. And it does. But you know what? What's to say that a young player can't help Hearts get third? What's to say a young player won't have that? These young kids have no fear. They just want to play football. And they're not getting a chance because Robin Nielsen, Craig Levine, Daniel Stendel, you can go through most managers, don't want to give young players a chance. The one time I've seen it was the one time we had to do it when we were in administration and Gary Locke had to basically play young players. And I tell you what, without the 15-point deduction, Hearts would have stayed up that season. We beat Hibs on the relegation derby and we were brilliant that day. You know, guys like Dale Carrick, guys like Dylan McGowan, you know, these young laddies that really, they showed an effort, they showed a desire, they showed a heart. They wanted to play for the team, they wanted to play for the club. Too many players now don't do that. And I'm seeing that far too often at Hearts now. Yesterday was a dreadful performance again. And too many players are just not doing enough. The one player I would say that actually played well yesterday, and a lot of Hearts fans might disagree with this, was Alan Forrest. I thought Alan Forrest gave us a bit of drive and he at least tried to do something. And then what do? We take him off. Absolutely pointless. Really, really poor again. But I am genuinely concerned we're not going to get third now because Aberdeen are on a decent run just now. They won against St Johnstone yesterday, maybe not a great performance, but they're winning games. They're being consistent. And the Aberdeen players now are playing for Barry Robson. I'm not seeing these Hearts players playing for Robin Nielsen. And I think that's why he's got to go. I don't know who you replace him with 8 games to go. But if we don't replace him now, I'm worried that we're not going to get third.
And as for Kamal, Graham, a brilliant win yesterday. Obviously, you would keep me saying that against Hearts, but I mean, it's the same old. It's a saying that's used in football. It's okay going winning well 1 week, but you've got to back up the next week, and that's what they've got to do.
Yeah, I mean, they probably should have beat St Johnstone before the break. They should have had that penalty for the Andy Considine handball. They never got it. Yesterday, they were better than Hearts all over the pitch. You know, Joe Wright, Joe Dorset, Lewis Mayo at the back were very comfortable. Midfield, I thought they looked very good. Liam Donnelly and Mackenzie, before they got sent off, were very good. And I thought Christian Doidge and Kyle Vassell gave our defence a lot of difficulty yesterday. And as I said earlier, they went down to 10 men, yet still created more chances than we did, which should never, ever happen. But yeah, Kilmarnock they were workmanlike. They were very professional, and they deserved the 3 points. Whether it's enough to keep them up, I don't know, because Hearts made it easy for them. They'll be playing against other teams that won't make it that easy, and they're going to be playing teams in and around them. They've got a very difficult game in Pittodrie next week. I don't think they'll win that game. I think at Pittodrie, Aberdeen are a very, very strong side. So I do think Kilmarnock will lose next week. I think they might have Celtic coming up as well, if I'm right.
Yeah, at Rugby Park.
Yeah, so they've got 2 very difficult games. And I think Kilmarnock will be in that relegation zone. But yesterday, they've got to be proud. You know, Derek McInnes was quite rightly raving about his team's performance, deservedly so, because they weren't lucky, they weren't fortunate, they deserved the 3 points. Absolutely no doubt about that. And, you know, I do think, again, though, they're not scoring a lot of goals. They won 2-1 yesterday with the penalty and the goal from Deutsch, but they're not really scoring a lot of goals. That might be a concern for McInnes, that when they are creating chances, they're not taking them. So when they get, after the split, they've got to start taking these chances when they get them, because I do think they're going to be in relegation trouble. I've said this for weeks, and I'm not changing my mind now because they beat Hearts. But fair play to Derek McInnes. They deserved to win yesterday. They were the far better team. And as I say, when they were down to 10 men, they were comfortable.
You mentioned Aberdeen. Let's move on to them. St Johnstone to St Johnstone 0. Sorry, I need to get my steps on, Graham. St Johnstone 0, Aberdeen 2. Before we move on and speak about the game, Graham, if there was an award for the messiest park at the weekend, it might have to go to a bluff at bits. Johnson might get an award because that was a shocking part at the weekend.
Yeah, I think Barry Robson might have mentioned that as well. You know, we talk about how bad Hampden is as a pitch. McDermott Park's not the best, is it? Really, really
No.
poor ground. But, I mean, in terms of the game, you know, the game basically changed in the sending off Andy Considine early on in the game. And it probably is a red card. You know, he pulls the guy back, edge of the box. He is very, very... I don't know what he's doing there. You know, just let the guy go. Even then, when the ball's getting played through, it's still a difficult chance for the guy to take. I don't think Considine's got anything to do that. And then the goal they concede, I don't know what Remy Matthews is doing. It's not the best of strikes for an Aberdeen striker. And I don't know what Matthews is trying to do with that. It's such poor goalkeeping. And from then on in, you know, I would say it was a scrappy game. But I think St Johnstone, to be fair to them though, even with 10 men, they still had a goal. They tried to have a goal. But Aberdeen, I think I would use the word professional. They did the job. They won the 3 points. That's all that mattered. You know, I'm sure that the fans in the stand knew that Hearts were getting beat. So that was a huge 3 points to them yesterday. They had to win that game. And they did probably just about enough. I don't think they created a lot of chances in the game. But I don't think Barry Robson will care. All that matters is 3 points and they got them. Although very fortuitously because Remy Matthews needs to take a look at himself in the mirror because I don't know what he's doing.
You might hate me for saying this, Graham, but Barry Robson's come in and he steadied the ship a wee bit.
No doubt about it. You know, this is the thing though. Sometimes I've said this before, I've never agreed with a new manager bounce. I just think it's a fantasy. But he's getting the best out of the Aberdeen side. You know, they're playing for him. They look a lot better than they went under Jim Goodwin and Stephen Glass. What does that say about them? But yeah, they look a lot more workmanlike. They look like they know what they're doing. They look like they've got a game plan now. And I think you've got to give Barry Robson credit. And I do think if he gets Aberdeen finishing third, hopefully he doesn't, but I'm worried now. But if he gets Aberdeen finishing third, I don't think there's any way that he can't get the job full time. I kind of understand why Dave Comet has given up to the end of the season to see how he does. But if he gets third, there's no way they can't give him the job permanently.
No, exactly. And, you know, and Shinnie gets sent off, Graham. I know that we've said on the show before, especially when Dave was on, I don't know why Aberdeen signed him for. I think it was because he was a favourite up there in the Bronchic. More fat, more bums on seats, basically, at Aberdeen games. But, I mean, what have they offered Aberdeen this season since he's come back?
I think he's experienced. I think he brings that kind of bite to that midfield. Against Hearts, he was outstanding. You know, it was a second booking yesterday, and fair enough, it probably wasn't a second booking, but I think he's done okay. I mean, I'll admit I was surprised that he came back, to be honest. I wasn't expecting him to come back, but I think he's done okay. You know, I think he has been a figurehead in that team. Maybe he hasn't had the best of times. You know, nobody did against Darvel or against Hearts and Hibs. But he is a good player. And I think he'll be disappointed that he got sent off yesterday. But I think he has offered something to the Aberdeen midfield that they maybe had lacked before. They don't look as easy to play against now. So, you know, I can understand why they brought him back. But disappointing they got sent off yesterday. But it was late in the game. It didn't really make any difference. But I think Aberdeen are in a very good place just now. You know, nobody expected them to, and I certainly didn't, to claw back an 11-point lead and be 1 point behind now with a chance to go above Hearts next week if results go their way. So you've got to give Barry Robson massive credit for that. But I also do think you've got to look at the Aberdeen side and say, why didn't we do this under the last two managers? That is something you've got to look at as well. But fair play to Barry Robson. I think he's done a great job.
Yeah, there we go. St Johnstone now, Aberdeen 2. Let's move on now to the game at Ibrox, Graham. To be honest, when I saw the score last night, I thought, well, I thought it would have been more comfortable for Rangers. And then when I saw the highlights, they had a few attempts to make it a bit more easier, but the game finished Rangers 2, Dundee United 0.
Yeah, before I talk about that game, I'll just give you the latest scores from the SWPL as well. A couple of games that have finished. Aberdeen 1, Spartans 2, Motherwell 1, Dundee United 1. Later scores are Hamilton 1, Glasgow 0, Celtic beat Partick Thistle by 2-0. It's currently Hearts 0, Glasgow Women 2, and in the later kickoff, it's Rangers 0, Hibs 0. I'll keep up to date with that while we're still on air. But that's the latest scores and the full-time scores from some of the SWPL games. But yeah, Rangers were... I mean, I think I said on Friday that if you're a Rangers fan, you want to win the game, but you want a good performance as well. I don't necessarily think they got the second one. They got the win, but I think at times United actually caused problems in that first half as well. They had a great chance in the first half, 2-on-1, they didn't take advantage of. They had a really good chance as well in the first half that just went over the bar. United caused problems, but Rangers, they kind of huffed and puffed, didn't really create that much. 2 goals from Alec Tillman, really good goals as well. I think Tillman's been a really good player for Rangers, actually. When he's been out, they've missed him. Very, very good footballer. I think Todd Cantwell's a very good player as well. Rangers did deserve to win on the balance of play, but I don't think they were particularly impressive.
Yeah, I know you said Tillman scored a double there, but the second goal, did the goalkeeper kind of help him a wee bit to get that goal?
Yeah, I think so. I've said this before. United don't have a really good goalkeeper. You know, they've got very, very poor goalkeepers there, which is why I'm surprised. I said this a while ago. I know he made 2 mistakes yesterday. I'm surprised he didn't go for Xander Clark when he was free. I think Xander Clark's a much better goalkeeper than what United have got. And yeah, there was no doubt he actually did help them. But I think in terms of Michael Beale, all you wanted yesterday was a win. You know, to go to that game next week, that massive, massive game next week against Celtic with 3 points on the board, knowing that Celtic were going up to Ross County today, which could have been a hard game in the end. It kind of wasn't because Celtic won the game in the end. But I think going into that game next week, it's a massive, massive game for both teams. It's a basically title decided next week. Celtic win, the title's over. I think it is anyway. But it's a massive game for Rangers. And I think they need to play at a much higher tempo and a much higher level than they did yesterday. I think Ibrox was a bit flat again yesterday. I don't think there was a lot of atmosphere in the game yesterday. And again, like I did with Ross County, I think you've got to give United credit. United never kind of caved. There's a decent few chances yesterday. So, you know, it's a game that Rangers fans will look back on and say, do you know what? We've won the game. That's all that matters. But I think performances, especially at Ibrox, have not actually been that great.
No, because I mean that's what Michael Beale said on Friday, Graham. You know that he was wanting a decent performance because he said that all the performances that came away from home, like I hate to say it in front of you, Tynecastle, Easter Road, places like that. But when they play against teams at Ibrox, they seem to play well for 45 minutes and go off the boil in the second half.
I mean, it's weird. You would think that with the game being at Ibrox, it'd be a lot better at home. But there's clearly something not quite right at Ibrox. They just can't seem to get themselves, I'm not saying up for it, but I don't know if it's a case if United sat in and tried to defend and made it hard. But Rangers just didn't have, they had a lot of possession, as you'd expect, but they didn't do a lot with it. You know, I thought United defended very well, but Rangers should have been a lot better than that. I think Rangers would have been looking for that early goal and they didn't get it.
Do you think it's because why they're not playing at home, Graham, is when you've got 50,000 fans booing for a stray pass or, you know, whatever, whereas if Rangers goes away from home, they feel more kind of like relaxed because they've not got the majority of the home fans?
Possibly. I mean, I think when you play for Celtic or Rangers, you know you've got to win every week. And there's a level of performance you've got to get to. And especially at home. You know, at Ibrox and Celtic Park, you've got to be on it right from the first whistle. And I think there's, away from home, they seem to play better. You know, those games you mentioned there against Livingston, against Hearts, against Hibs, away from home, they've been far better than at home, which is a surprise. But there is an expectation at Ibrox. I think sometimes Rangers fans go to Ibrox and think, right, we're here, you entertain us now. And maybe that's a problem. But Rangers got the job done yesterday. That's all that matters. And they go to Celtic Park next week with no fans, which will be strange, but it will be an interesting game next week because I think the title's done already. But yesterday, it was all about getting 3 points, and they've done that. And I do think Malik Tillman's been a very good signing for Rangers. He's been excellent.
Yeah, do you think that Rangers will push the boat out at the end of the season and do all that they can to sign him up?
If they don't, they should be. And I think if I'm a Rangers fan, that's one bit of business you need to do. Because he's got something about him. He's creative. He's got really good feet. He can score goals. And I think he's got a decent relationship with Todd Cantwell as well. I think they have to get that done.
He's actually scored more goals. And I'm not sure if the Rangers goal scorers are by heart, Graham, but I'm sure he's got more goals than Cholak.
I think he probably does. I mean, Cholak's been kind of I do like Cholak. I think he's a better striker than Morelos, just because he's got better movement. And I think he looks more interested than Morelos does. Again, Morelos played yesterday and didn't really do very much. I think it wouldn't be a massive... I think I've said this before on the show as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Morelos does go, because he's not offering enough just now. But I think Malik Tillman has been a very good signing. You know, him and Cantwell, I think, have improved that Rangers side quite a bit. But come the end of the season, I'm sure that Michael Beale will sit down at the end of the season and go, right, what do I need next season? I think I saw something a few days ago that he talked about signings that he wants to make, maybe 4 or 5. Whether he needs more than that, I don't know, because they need to be challenging Celtic next season. They've not really done that this season. And again, I've said before, I don't think you can judge Michael Beale on this season, because he's coming late to the season when they were behind Celtic already. I think you judge him next season when he's got a summer transfer window, when you're starting the season from scratch. He could yet still win the Scottish Cup. I'm not sure he will, because I think Celtic will win that, but he could win it. And I think if he did that, that would buy him time with some of the Rangers fans. Again, something else I mentioned in the show, I still think there's a lot of Rangers fans are not overly convinced with Michael Beale. So I think these next few games are going to be massive, and that Celtic semi-final is going to be huge for him.
You make a good point there, Glenn. I mean, what I was saying to you was because Tillman has scored more goals than Cholak, right? But see, when you look at it as a whole, I think putting these two players' goals together, they've actually scored more goals this season than Morelos has. And if I was a Rangers fan, that would be a big concern.
100%. You know, I think Morelos, we all know what Morelos is like. We all know that he can score goals. But sometimes I look at Morelos' body language and I just think, are you really that bothered about playing for Rangers anymore? And at times I've thought, I don't think he really wants to be there. And you can see that sometimes the way that he plays. I think he probably will play against Celtic next week, Morelos. If that's the right decision, I don't know. But I think he will play next week. But if Morelos goes, I don't think he would be... I think he'd be a loss. But I think a lot of Rangers fans are now at the stage of, do you know what? Let him go. He doesn't want to be here. He's not offering enough. And I think you can tell Morelos at times, as I said, his body language just doesn't look the best. And I think Tillman, for me, I think he's a must for Rangers to sign next season. I really do, because I think he's offering a lot more than a lot of those Rangers players are.
I think obviously we'll speak about it more in detail in the show next week, Graham. But if we're speaking about the teams now, obviously it's a bit too early yet to speak about the game that's Saturday. But I think that's the difference, because you can basically guess what the Celtic team would be, and if players kind of drop out the team, like like Greg Taylor or whatever, somebody would come in and do his job, and you don't know the difference. And that's a big difference between Celtic and Rangers at the moment, Grim.
I'll try not to choke myself here.
What?
I've had a really bad cough for the last few days, as you can probably tell. Yeah, I think I've said before that there's a massive gap between Celtic and Rangers. My throat's going. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay, so you're listening to Indie Live Radio on a Sunday with myself, Michael McShane, or I think we call the Doctor, actually, looking after Graham Duffy. Actually, to be honest, Graham has lasted longer today. Well, he lasted a bit lesser compared to Friday night, because when we went off air on Friday night, he said if the show was on for another half an hour, he couldn't make it. But and his voice held out on Fleggy, but obviously not today. So yeah. Graham will come back when he is ready to join us. Don't forget you can join us on the locker room every Friday night between 3 and 5, and Sunday between 3 and 5 on the Sunday, and 5 and 7 on our Friday night. That's what I meant. And you can join us on Twitter as well, at the Locker Room Indie on Twitter. And it's not too late to send us a comment on YouTube and Twitter. Just put your comment on there as well, and we will read it out between now and the top of the hour before we finish. So, as I say, you're listening to the Locker Room on Indie Live Radio and Independence Live. Thanks for watching, people. Today we've got high numbers as always, and we've got high numbers on Fleg as well. So if you haven't watched the show, thanks for being here, and tune in when we're on as well, Fleg and Sunday, and tune in every other time here on Indie Live Radio. So Mr. Duffy is now back, and I think that are you, as I say, as your old uncle used to say, are you all right, son?
Nothing like dying on radio there, eh? I've got another bottle of water, so I'm all right now.
Sponsored by water. What kind of water is that? And as I was saying to you, Glenn, before you went off, I think that's the difference between Celtic and Rangers, because you can actually guess what the Celtic team's going to be, and if there's going to be one or two changes in the team, like so Greg Taylor went off injured today. You don't notice the difference because somebody comes in and does his job to a T. But that's the difference at the moment with Celtic and Rangers, because Rangers hasn't really got that firepower. Would that be fair?
I said weeks ago that there's a massive gap, a massive gulf between Celtic and Rangers squads, and it's clear for all to see. You know, as I said, you can make Celtic can make 5 or 6 changes, and the players they bring in don't make them any weaker. Rangers can't really afford to do that. Now, we know they have missed players this season. You know, they've not had John Souttar fit. He's back now, finally. But they can't really make as many changes and be the same kind of team as Celtic can be. And that's something that I think Mirko Biel will look to do next season. He needs to get a stronger squad, and probably a better squad as well. There's probably maybe 3 or 4 in that Rangers team that, I mean, I keep saying this a lot, but Ryan Kent is a player that I do like, but he's very inconsistent. You know, you don't know what you're going to get with him, but it's like most wingers, though. A lot of wingers are the same, no matter what level you're at. They can be great one week and terrible the next week. Like, look at Jota today. He's been great for Celtic, but he didn't have his best game today. It's the same with Ryan Kent. You know, he flatters to deceive at times, but Celtic's squad is just so strong, which is why I've said weeks ago that the title's done for me, no matter what happens next week. But the difference in squads is huge. You know, there's a massive gulf in quality. On a one-off game, of course, Rangers can beat Celtic. They didn't do it in the League Cup, but that Scottish Cup game, honestly, is going to be massive, I think. As I said, if Rangers can win that, Michael Beale, you've got to imagine will win the trophy, because they're playing a championship team or a Falkirk or Inverness in the cup final. So you've got to assume they'd win that. So if Michael Beale wins a trophy this season, then I think he'll probably be given a lot more time. But as I say, I don't think you can judge them until next season. But that Celtic squad, we keep saying this every week, that Celtic squad is just so strong. We look at the players that Celtic didn't have today, Hatate and Moy, 2 massive players at the start of every week, and yet Celtic still win the game today. So there's a huge gulf in quality. And I think that might continue next season as well, but it depends what both teams do in the summer.
Okay, let's move on now to St Mirren 3, Livingston 0. St Mirren goals always all came in the first half for them. You would like to say it was a comfortable win for St Mirren. O'Hara scoring 2 penalties and Tony Watt scored a goal, but a bit disappointed in Livy yesterday, because I mean, we only saw the highlights, Graham, and they only had 2 real shots at goal. Newbury and Kelly shot a goal. Apart from that, they didn't really offer anything.
They've gone totally off the board recently. I don't know what's happened there, but they just look very badly off form, which can happen. Of course it can. You can go 4 or 5 games without a win. That does happen. But they don't look anywhere near the level they should be at. And I'm sure David Martindale said that himself. The 2 penalties they concede, again, letter of the law, they probably are penalties. Mark O'Hara sticks them away very well. And Tony Watt's goal, I've got to say, is a very good goal as well. But yeah, St Mirren were excellent yesterday. They really are. You know, I've said this before, that the job that they've done, that Stephen Robinson's done, has been brilliant. Hey, Feed the Bear's been on. Hello, boys. Not been on for a while. Hope you are well. Good to see you back, Feed the Bear. We've missed you, pal. Yeah. And I honestly do love that name as well. But yeah, I just think St Mirren were very good yesterday. Deserved the win. Probably could have won by more than that. But there's something clearly missing at Livingston just now. They just can't seem to win games just now, and they're conceding goals. I know 2 are penalties, but they're conceding goals at an alarming rate. And I think David Martindale's got to be very concerned, because I thought, well, it was between them and St Mirren for top 6. I think it's going to be St Mirren now on the back of that. I just think Livingston look, I don't know what it is, they just look like they've lost a bit of confidence. And when they go a goal down now, it seems that they can't seem to get themselves back. So I am I've said this before, I think David Martindale's a very good manager. But at the moment, they just look like they're stuck in a rut just now and can't get out of it.
I know that we're going to speak about Marvel in a minute, Stephen Kittle, but the other Stephen Robertson, has done a brilliant job since he's winning there at St Mirren.
He has. You know, a lot of St Mirren fans weren't overly pleased with him at the start of the season, but he's turned that round. The signings that he's made have been excellent. You know, I think Curtis Main's been really good. Alec Grieve, Bacchus has been really good. They've done very, very well, and especially at home. You know, at the Smizer Stadium, they are a very strong team and a very hard team to play against. As Celtic have found out to their cost. Hearts have found out to their cost. They're a very strong side at home. I don't think they'll win next week because they're playing at Tynecastle, but then again, you never know. But yeah, you've got to give massive credit to Robinson for the job he's done. They've been fantastic. And I think they will be top 6 now. I genuinely do. I think that game yesterday was a massive, massive game. And I think they'll be top 6 now.
Yeah, and as for Livingston, you touched upon them, Graham. That the wheels just came off the bus in the past couple of weeks. Not the wheels on the bus, but the wheels came off the bus.
Yeah, they have. I mean, as I said, they're losing goals at an alarming rate. I know 2 are penalties, but they just can't seem to keep clean sheets, and they're not scoring enough. That's a massive, massive issue. And maybe they are getting a bit kind of, I don't know if it's harsh to say they're getting found out, because they do have, you know, I've been a massive fan of Joe Newbley. I've said that before. But I'm looking at I'm trying to get the fixtures up for the last 2 games before the split, because they are away to Motherwell, at home to St Johnstone, and away to Dundee United. Difficult fixtures for them. They've not actually, just trying to find, their last win was on the 4th of February against Kilmarnock. They've got to start picking up wins, and they've got to start doing that next week, although they're away to Motherwell next week, which is a massive game. So yeah, I just think Livingston have fallen off a cliff just now, and they just can't seem to get their confidence back. But, you know, you never know. They could go to Motherwell next week and win. That's what happens. That's how tight this league can be. They could easily go to Motherwell next week and win, but there's something missing with David Martindale's side just now, and they need to find that quickly.
Okay, let's go on to Motherwell. A big win for them yesterday. Away from home, Graham. Away your rivals across the road, the High Bees, and Lee Johnson was watching this game in the stand.
He wouldn't have been happy with what he saw, because Motherwell were excellent. Absolutely fantastic performance and result for them. And I've got to say, the free kick from Sean Goss in the first half was a magnificent free kick. You could have had 2 keepers in there who wouldn't have saved that. And I think Motherwell were thoroughly deserving of the win. I would say, though, as much as they were very good, I do have to caveat the fact that David Marshall was horrendous for Hibs yesterday. He made 2 mistakes in that second half. What he's doing, rushing out for the ball, it's a poor challenge from Blair Spittle, and he should save the penalty. Van Veen's penalty is not a very well struck penalty. It goes under him. He should save that. And then for the third goal, Van Veen's free kick, I think Marshall's got to do better there as well. He's got to move his feet. He doesn't get across quick enough, and they lose the goal. So it wasn't a great day for goalkeepers yesterday. Xander Clark, David Marshall, very poor for them. But Motherwell were excellent. They were very, very good. You know, the job that Stuart Kettlewell's done has been incredible. They really have been fantastic. And I keep on talking about Van Veen. I think that's 17 goals this season now for them. That's fantastic. And they could have scored more yesterday. Hibs were disjointed. They weren't particularly great going forward. I know they get the goal from Kevin Nisbet, but apart from that, they didn't offer that much. And I talk about teams in a bit of a rut. You know, Hibs have been decent, but yesterday was a massive blow for them. You know, they've got to try and win. They've got to get back on the horse and win the next game, but take nothing away from Motherwell. They were outstanding yesterday. Thoroughly deserved 3 points.
I think when you were talking about Van Veen and brilliant free kick, Larry, but I think he's actually found a second wind of, what would I say, under the new manager, because I know that we used to come on the show and say, well, what does he offer Motherwell? But I don't know about you, Glenn, but that humble pie is quite nice.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to Van Veen. You know, I know he didn't play yesterday, but I do think the signing of Abika has made a massive impact on him. But he's now looking like a really confident player. It's not that he wasn't confident under Stevie Hamill, because he was still scoring goals, but he looks a lot better now. He looks hungrier, he looks sharper, he looks fitter. And that's down to Stuart Kettlewell. The job that he's done since he came in. There looks like a real breath of fresh air in the club now that he didn't have before. You know, you go back to that Wraith Rovers game that Stevie Hamill got sacked, and that wasn't a surprise, because they were poor that day, and I knew that was coming. But what they've done since Kettlewell came in, you know, apart from that defeat against Rangers, they've been pretty much unbeatable so far. So fair play, and Kevin Van Veen's been outstanding. He really has. I don't know if he went Motherwell next season. Again, I think he might be at a higher level, but you've got to give him credit for what he's done, because he's been outstanding so far.
Okay, that was the Premiership roundup. Just to finish off the football, and then we'll touch upon rugby very quickly. Some win yesterday for Dundee, 7-0 against Hamilton at home. Graham, that was a brilliant win. And same against Packet, Thistle 5-0 against Cove Rangers.
I don't think the Partick Thistle was a massive shock. We've talked about the fact that Cove concede goals regularly at an alarming rate as well. Another 5 yesterday. I mean, Paul Hartley's got a really tough job on his hands there. Cove look very, very poor. But, I mean, Dundee went 7-0 against Hamilton. I thought Dundee would win that game. I didn't think they'd win it 7-0. I don't think anybody did. But fair play. Gary Boyer's done a very good job there. Again, they're now right on the coattails of Queen's Park. Queen's Park got beat 2-0 by Wraith yesterday. A massive disappointment there. And again, are the wheels falling off Queen's Park a little bit? It's looking likely. Dundee are certainly catching them. It's a real tussle now for that automatic motion place, and I think this might go right down to the wire now. It really could. But yeah,
no, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, fantastic result for Dundee, great result for Wraith Rovers, fantastic result for Partick Thistle, but not exactly a shock. So again, the top of that league is just brilliant, and I do now feel, I've said before that I've been right behind Queen's Park. I still am. But right now, Dundee look like they've got a bit more about them than Queen's Park do. I think the wheels are falling off.
Yeah, and I was just about to say, next week we'll see 2 Glasgow derbies, Rangers against Celtic and Packet Thistle against Queen's Park. When was the last time you saw that, Clem? The other scores, you had Green at Morton 1, Inverness 2, and as Graham alluded to there, Wraith Rovers 2, Queen's Park 0. Just to update you on the rugby situation, Six Nations yesterday, Glasgow, Six Nations Scottish women's get beat 22-24 against Wales, so a very tight game. Ireland got beat 53 off of France. That's a beating and a half. And finally, we had a game finished today. England 68, Italy 5. Okay, so that's all for us for today. Again, it's been a busy show. Thanks for all your comments. We'll do it all again next weekend when we look forward to the big Derby weekend. Whether you're Celtic Rangers or Packet Thistle or Queen's Park fan, we'll do it all again next Friday. Hopefully, Graham will be back, voice permitting, and we'll see you soon.
You're listening to a Locker Room Special.